Okay. So, hello everybody. We're trying to screen share here, so hopefully you can see that screen. So last week, Dino put something to me to read about future study articles in November and December of this year, which will get studied probably next year, 2020, 26. And Dino sent me a wee message the other day to says you need to read this. And so one of the things is what's on the screen there. So for those who are listening to this and can't read it, I'll just say what comes out here. Perhaps you are saddened by the possibility that the end of the system will not come in your lifetime. If you feel that way, what can help? Try to remember that Jehovah is patiently waiting to bring an end to this wicked world. But his patience is not that purpose. His patience is allowing millions of people the time and the opportunity to come to know him and serve him. So when you feel discouraged, try to think about how many people will benefit from Jehovah's patience before the end comes. Might some of them be members of your own family? Okay. So I read that, and what struck me, to be perfectly honest with you, is that's the first time in my life, and I don't read Jehovah's Witness stuff these days anyway, but it's the first time in my life that I've ever read the witnesses put that Armageddon's not going to come in somebody's lifetime.
Yeah,
That's the difference here, because
yeah,
beforehand it was always Armageddon is going to come in your lifetime. It's so close. It's so close we can taste it. It's literally just around the corner. And to repeat, brother Stephen Letts, and he said this 5 years ago. Let's get again. This is as COVID was picking up. I can't do this all manners. But anyway, the events unfolding around us are making clearer than ever that we're living in the final part of the last days. Undoubtedly, the final part of the last days, shortly before the last day of the last days. That was 5 years ago.
5 years.
Hey,
Yeah,
then 5 years ago, he said that. So now all of a sudden you can just forget about that. That's all gone. Just erase it. He ever came up with that utter nonsense. And now the people who are witnesses, they've got to now come to the reality that Armageddon's not going to come in their lifetime. And this is like really good information if you're now if you approach Carter's and just say, do you really think that
yeah,
Armageddon's going to come in your lifetime? Because according to the Watchtower, that's the reality now that they're now saying it's not going to come in your lifetime, and they're not even generationalizing that, saying, oh, by the way, it will be yours, but it won't be yours. It's just so open-ended now. It's just saying the reality is that for all the witnesses living today, the Armageddon may not come in their lifetime. And of
mm,
course, they're trying to, what they're trying to do with this is this whole bit that's saying he's patiently waiting. He wants more people to come in. He's just holding back here. Jehovah's holding back. Now, I don't understand this because, as far as I'm aware, Jehovah God, for all intents and purposes, has already decided the date, the hour, the time
yeah,
when he was going to wipe out 7 billion people on this earth. Literally, it's in his little spiritual calendar up on his wall in heaven. And while he's doing other things, while he's in another dimension, creating another universe, or he's doing things outside our own material universe that we can't see, all of a sudden it comes up as a little reminder on his heavenly thing. Went, oh yes, here's the day. It's the day that I actually picked up 6,000 years ago, and here's the day
yeah,
when I'm going to just turn my events back to the planet Earth, which I've done not much about with recently, and destroy 5 billion, 7 billion people. This saying this is saying that somehow that's not the case. The reason why Jehovah hasn't brought Armageddon yet is because he wants the numbers to go up. He's patiently waiting, giving more people the chance. But it's a bit like a plane. I'm going to be taking a plane in 2 weeks' time. Now, that flight was already set in stone a year ago. Now, the
yeah,
pilot, once you come to your departure gate time, No, he's not waiting for anybody. Everybody needs to go there to their destination. His plane has got to take off that time, a time that was already set in stone a year ago when I get on it. So, in other words, the pilot's not patiently waiting. The pilot has a time that he must take off. So he's not patiently waiting for maybe a few drunkards at the bar who are on the jollies, and I'll patiently wait for them. I don't want
Yeah,
them to get left behind.
yeah,
And there's a family who got stuck in traffic. I'll patiently wait because I don't want them to left behind. It's a lot of nonsense because the way that's presenting that, reading that now, it's as though he is waiting for those numbers to go up before he finally decides to tell you what, maybe now's the time. When in reality, as we know, the figures aren't going up. They're absolutely static. And if you'd actually brought Armageddon 5 years ago, there would have been 25,000 more Jehovah's Witnesses to go through to the paradise who died
mhm,
during COVID.
yeah,
So it's a little
yeah,
bit self-defeating, this one. It's a little bit
yeah,
self-defeating. But that's what I read that, and I just thought this is just I just can't wait to be fair that I ever go and meet if I get to castles again, I'm going to say to them, this
mhm,
this is powerful stuff, and whether the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves have twigged on what you twigged on here, I don't
mhm,
really know. But I think in my own mind, this is a complete game changer.
yeah. No, I think so. When I read it, it's basically they're trying to prepare people for disappointment. It's like that they must realize that there's so many now have gotten to an age that they never expected to get to an age, and that they must be thinking in the back of their minds that, I wasn't supposed to get this old. I wasn't meant to get this sick. And I know from personal experience, I was just thinking this evening, my dad's situation. Now, when he first had the witnesses come to his door, I was working out tonight, he would have been 47 years of age. I would have been 19, right? And at 47, as he was learning it, the thing that stood out for him was he was not going to grow really old, and that he would live to pass through this this new system, and they would see his brother who died years ago. He would come back in the resurrection. That was a thing for him. He wasn't going to grow old, and he wasn't going to have to die. He's now 90 years of age, sitting in a care home room with his brain eventually slowly dying and his memory and his mind going at 90. He wasn't meant to see that. What had been put to him was that the new system was going to come well before the end of the 20th century. And as I said recently, I met a witness that we knew from here, and speaking about how our parents had both died in recent years. Um, and again, how when they were young, colpatures, as they used to call them, rather than pioneers, they would have been colpatures. They would never have thought that they would have got to the age that they got to and then died. And then it was like the next generations are growing up, and that sister's all grey haired and getting on. Um, and so they realised that there's all these ones in the congregation who were all told, as we were, that we would never get. I mean, we're now 63. We're 63. We probably thought that we would never get to this age before the end of the old system. So I'm older now, but older than what my dad was when he first got witness to. So it's the point you made was what I was going to bring up about, hasn't Jehovah set a time when he was going to bring this destruction? I mean, Acts 17:31, it says, because he has set a day in which he purposes to judge the inhabited earth. We were always told he was a God of organization and a God of timetables. So as you said with the pilot, he's got to go at his time slot, you know. So Jehovah apparently has set a day. So why are they now saying he's delaying it? They try to spin it. He's being patient, but how long can you let it? Can you let it go? If you've set a date, I mean, if he's patient and leaves it a wee bit longer to get more in, there's more and more people getting born all the time, population expanding. No matter what time he brings it, some are going to miss out, right? So if you're going to delay it and be patient because you don't want any to be destroyed, then it'll never come because there's always going to be ones that could maybe have get saved. Do we have to wait till the whole world is converted? No, the scriptures don't say that. So, the witnesses, why are they saying there's this patience then? He's delayed the schedule.
Yeah.
Again, they're just changing the goalposts once again, rather than say, it all comes down to this again, rather than admit that their errors and say, no, it's delayed or we've got it wrong in the past. It's spun that it's patience, you know. So unfortunately, there's going to be an awful lot of witnesses who are gullible enough to just go along with that. Um, Whereas you would think some would think, well, that's not what we were told. This should have come by now. Now it's really interesting that you brought up the point about figures because I had to think about this, and hopefully everyone can see on screen. There should be this publisher growth here. If you can see it, can you see that all right, Terry? Yeah, great stuff. um, Publisher growth 1980 to 2024. I was speaking to a brother recently, and he'd come back from an assembly, and he'd said that we're now at almost 9 million publishers worldwide. 9 million publishers. That's fantastic. It works out that there's, I think it was about 400 or 500 people per one witness. And he's saying this is great. And I was thinking, that doesn't sound like that much of an expansion since our day. So how do we look at the AI again and ask the AI the question to have a look at the Jehovah's Witness figures? So you can see there in 1980, average publishers were 2.2 million. Then in 1990, just before we basically left, it was up to 4 million. And over that 10 years, that decade, there'd been an 82% rise between 1980 and 1990. So things were really on the up at that point, an 80% rise. But then from 1990 to 2000, that next decade, the figures went up to 5.9 million. So there is an increase, right? But the percentage from the previous decade is only up 47%. So it's still growing, but the percentage growth is almost halved. And then in 2010, another 10 years, 7.3 million. But again, the percentage of growth has halved again. It's 24% for that last decade. And then in 2020, the figure was 8.7 million publishers, but the growth rate is now 19%. So the growth rate over that period has basically halved and halved, and then it's down to 90%. And then finally, 2024, because I think that's the last recorded figures now, because they're not releasing the figures, I don't think. So 2024, they were up to 8.8 million, so almost 9 million publishers worldwide. But the percentage growth from 2020 is just 1.1%. So yeah, they talk about lies, damn lies, and statistics. Well, the statistics show that although we're nearly 9 million publishers that were going up, but when you actually look at it, the percentage of growth has fallen away from 82% growth per decade in 1990 to basically, you could maybe say over the last 5 years, 20%, you know? So the computer had said, the AI had said, growth was strong in the 1980s and 1990s, but the rate has slowed significantly since 2000. So 2010 to 24, the increase is modest, suggesting a plateau. And then I asked it to have a look at memorial attendance, and we see the same thing. You see there from 1980, there was 4.5 million in attendance, and then 8.5 10 years later. Another 10 years, it was 14 million. So it's going up and going up till 2024. It was 21.1 million at the memorial attendance. So again, that looks like a nice steady increase. But when you look at ratio to publishers, it basically hasn't changed. It's basically saying in 1980, there was effectively um, two people at the well, it's times two. So what does that mean? Every publisher brought one person along to the meeting, to the memorial.
Yes.
But then in 1990, because the publishers have gone up, then it was still only two times 2.1. So for every witness, they were still bringing maybe one or two people to the memorial. And the ratio to publishers has just stayed the same 2.4, 2.5, down to 2, and then 2.4. So it's basically saying that there's not really proportionally, percentage wise, any great increase in who's coming to the memorial. It's just the amount of publishers that are percentage wise, they're each bringing maybe one or two people at most. There hasn't been this influx. So the observation that it's the AI says memorial attendance has grown overall, but not proportionally to the publisher base. The ratio fluctuates, suggesting that while outreach remains strong, conversion and retention may be weaker. So the figures are just not showing any growth at all. Um, and then it told me that according to JW Facts, which is a very good website, it was saying that between 2011 and 2020, there was 2.7 million baptisms, yet the increase in publishers was only 1.2 million. So 2.7
Mm,
million baptized, but they only increased by 1.2. So that implies
mm,
that over 1.5 million left or ceased activity or even accounted for deaths. I think that the AI has missed maybe is that of the 2.7 million baptized, there would have been some of them would have been children that were getting baptized who possibly
mm.
were already publishers.
Yeah,
So, unbaptized publishers. I think that was the case in our day. I think it probably still the case. You could be
yeah,
unbaptized, but you could be recorded as a publisher. So some of that missing 1.5 million is maybe accounted for by unbaptized publishers who are now baptized. But it's also clear that there's been ones leaving the organization. So there's some coming in the front door and others going out. It's a bit like the call centers you get. These companies take on people just willy-nilly through the door, just come in, sit with the
yeah,
phones, put your headset on, and they wear you out. And after a few months, you've had enough
yeah,
and you're gone. But it's just a constant conveyor belt of people coming in the door and others leaving. And it seems to be much the same with the witnesses. So the conclusions that it says numerical growth has occurred, but the rate has declined sharply since the 1990s. So, as you said, they appear to have plateaued
mm,
decades ago. 1980s, 1990s was the height. So that would have been a good time for the end to come. As you said, more people would have been there, present, um, but it didn't come. The figures are going down the way. It's getting a worse time um, to intervene. Now, I also asked the AI to have a look at field ministry hours and to look at things like birth rates. And because basically, if the population within the witnesses is going up, more families, their children, and them having children, that the rates of the publishers would have to grow with the fact that there's more and more children, families coming in. So you'd expect a growth just from that alone, rather than just people coming into the organization. It's the children that have been born within the organization are going to increase the numbers. So I asked it to work out what the expected rate should be today. how many publishers should there be within the witnesses, taking into account their preaching and their growth rate from birth, basically. So it made some calculations, taking into account how many hours in the field ministry you need to get one convert. And then it looked at birth rate. And it says that statistically, historically, there's higher the average birth rates within the witnesses. So even if we assume 1.5% annual growth, over 40 years, that compounds to there should have been an 80% increase in the numbers just from the birth rate alone.
Mm.
So from 2.2 million in 1980, birth alone would have added 1.76 million publishers just from the birth rate. And then from the reasonable growth projection, I'll just bring that up, reasonable growth projection, evangelism-based growth, if their efficiency in the field ministry had been the same, then they would expect to have added 25 million publishers. And that's possibly the bad effect of that. Obviously, COVID had a brief intervention in that. But basically, because they seem to be doing more cart work rather than door-to-door ministry, their efficiency in their ministry can't be as good. When they're standing at the carts talking to themselves, not talking to anybody else, and not chapping anybody's doors, then their efficiency is not as good. So over that period of 40 years, they should have added 25 million publishers alone from evangelism, 1.76 million from the birth rate, saying that by 2020, there should have been 26.7 million witnesses today. But in fact, there's only 8.4. So they're only 31% of the expected figure that they probably should have been by now.
Mm.
So when these witnesses are going to their meetings, going to their assemblies, and the governing body on their broadcast, they're saying, expansion Bible studies are up and we've got growth. There was 21 million at the memorial, we're 9.9 million publishers. And they're all going, oh, that's great, a wonderful blessing. It's actually not. They're actually in decline. The statistics are lying to them, and that they think they're growing. They're actually declining. They're not bringing in the amount that they should have had over that period. Only a third of what you would have expected. And I was looking at some today and it came up on YouTube. You get these YouTube videos that come up and it shows you things like football teams and how many teams have won the European Cup over certain years. And there's one came up today about religions from about 1850 through to the present day. And it was showing you the total numbers. And it was things like the Chinese religion at the top, then it was Christianity and Hinduism and such like. And the very bottom, there was like Sikhism, right? And Sikhism could be wrong, but I don't think Sikhs preach as such. I think they're very much family. You're either a Sikh or you're not. So I think it only grows by birth rate. Yeah.
Yes.
So they were at the bottom for long enough over the last number of decades. But it ended up that by about, when did it finish? About 2020 or something, I think it said. Sikhism was at 13 million. Right? So today there's at least 13 million Sikhs in the world, and they don't preach, And the witnesses for all their preaching work, they're sitting at 8 million. So where's the blessing, in all this? So and I was thinking about it. There's a lot in the news just now about we're big football fans, and both our teams are only doing great at the moment. But you only have to go, the managers for these teams, particularly in Scotland, England as well, because Potter got sacked the other day, didn't he, at West Ham?
Yeah.
So how many games into the season are you? Is it 4 or 5 games?
Maybe six. Maybe six.
Maybe 6, right?
But in English one, yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe it was 6 as well, 5 or 6 games. and there's managers here under pressure that are going to get sacked. But
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, if the witnesses were a football team, you know, the publishers would all be chanting, "Sack the board," as
Uh,
they do up here, or "Sack, you're getting sacked in
yeah.
the morning." Because
Yes.
if Jesus was ruling from 1914 and he's overseeing the preaching work, and the governing body are his, they've appointed as the team manager, right?
Yeah.
And they're not getting the results that they
Yeah.
should be getting. It'd be sack the board. You're gone in the
Mm.
morning, you know. So it's funny how they like to spin it that they're progressing, but simple look at the statistics and they're anything but. Um, they're in decline. Anyway,
Well,
I didn't
honestly,
expect to bring
thanks.
football into it tonight, but there you go.
Yes, it was. Actually, what you've just said there, actually, your presentation there, I think it might go down as one when we look round at some of the things that have happened in since the dawn of mankind, and it might be one of the great events of civilization.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just taking a mickey out of Donald Trump, but because he had a meeting with the Israeli guy yesterday, and he says that in the look back in time ago, this meeting was one of the could have been the greatest moments in civilization. He said that
Mhm.
meeting yesterday. Forget about Caesar crossing the Rubicon. Forget about Armstrong landing on the moon. Forget about the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. No, it was Donald Trump talking shite yet
Trump.
again. One of the great
Mhm.
moments in civilization. They'll actually put statues there. Unbelievable. But anyway, yes, I think what you just said there, I'd will actually go down as having something you can go back to and just say that yes, what you've just brought out here, especially with in the Jehovah's Witness world that we live in, anybody hopefully can go back to this and do go back and look on the work that you've done here to just then use that as ammunition again when speaking to witnesses who are either the relatives or ex-mates and just say, look, I watched a video the other day and that there is no growth, and that yes, that the if the governing body were the board of directors on a football team, the owner would sack them. You know what I mean? It'd be as simple as that because the results are just so poor now, and they're not even a bit like my team showing any interest in trying to improve results when you see them in the street where they don't really care anymore. It's just literally we're here. We'll keep it as it is. They're quite happy with the numbers. And that's it. There's the urgency has gone out of this organization. The fact they're just saying now that you're actually going to die before the end of these system things. The urgency's gone. Nobody can. Not even recording figures. Not recording time. It's just you've even got time, as we discussed the other day, that when all of a sudden you see the first bolt of lightning coming down from the sky, to go, oh, so change my mind. Maybe this is right all along. It's just a religion that literally there's no sense of urgency. There's no actually any reason to be in it anymore, and in my mind, it's dead. To me, it's
Yeah.
dead now. That's my opinion.
I, I was thinking about this again the other day when they made the generation change. See if they had just said at that point, look, okay, hands up, we've got this wrong. We're clearly not spirit directed. Let's have a rethink. 1914 obviously must be wrong. Um, we're sorry, but let's see what we can go. If they'd said that, I might have even stayed a bit longer. You could have kind of accepted that a wee bit, but it's the fact that they will never admit that they've been wrong about all these time periods. They'll never admit um, that they're spirit not spirit directed. You know, so at that point, I think I agree with you that the organization died at that point. They were no
Yeah.
longer the organization that we thought it was. It came to an end at that point, and they're a zombie organization. I think now, they're Walking Dead
Yeah,
basically.
the Walking Dead. In
Yeah.
fact, Stephen Lex looks like one of the Walking Dead without having to put any makeup on him. Makes it. Let's do it again. The events unfolding. Undoubtedly, the final part of the final part of the
You got
last stage. Oh,
You've
God.
got to do the eyes and the eyebrows. The eyebrows.
Can you do that? Oh my God. Shortly before the last day of the last days, 5 years ago, Stephen, 5 years ago, you said that, mate. And now it's a case of they're all going to die, including you, Stephen. There you go. They should have that nailed on his coffin, shouldn't they? At the last bit, Oh, there you go. Right. Anyway, I think we've covered what needed to
Yeah,
be done. I think we've just got enough time to say our goodbyes. But thank you for encouraging me to actually do a wee bit of research there. So I had a little bit to think about what I was going to say
drag you away
for
from
a
the Ryder
change. Yes. Oh, yeah. And the Ryder Cup, that was fantastic, wasn't it? We just a quick mention to our European boys who really showed our American, well, I wouldn't say friends, but our Americans how to win away from home and show some good sportsmanship. That was fantastic. So there you go. Are you
Cup.
watching Donald Trump? Right, Dino. Thanks for that. I really enjoyed that, and
Pleasure.
it's time for you to say goodbye.
Goodbye. See you again. Thanks for listening. Press the like button.
Goodbye. Press the like button and also subscribe if you want to see any more of this. And this video is there, so all that's in available for you to go back and look at some of those quite amazing figures that Dino's pulled out the bag there. Right, see you later then. Bye bye.
Bye for now.